Okay, hello everybody. Just wanted to make a quick video going over the literary analysis PowerPoint and the essay instructions. So it's not going to be too long, okay? I will condense this, go quick. I just want us all to be on the same page regarding the essay and what you have to do for these next few modules, okay? So the literary analysis PowerPoint. When we're analyzing literature, there's a couple things we have to do, okay? And this is all in the book, by the way. You can check all this in your books. But let's, enhance that. So this is chapter 17, all right? And there are some key features to the literary analysis. So we're going to go through each key feature really quick. Excuse me. So you need an arguable thesis, okay? You need an arguable thesis for your essay. Whenever you're analyzing literature, your thesis has to be arguable. It can't be anything obvious, okay? And this is basically what this states, that you should know the difference between summarizing and arguing something. So summarizing a piece of fiction or a poem, that's not arguable, right? you're just telling me what happened. So you need more than that. You should be able to argue, and this should be an original argument, okay? Which is kind of hard because a lot of these stories you guys are going to read, they've already been done, you know? They've already been argued on and argued about. So coming up with something interesting and original is definitely not easy, okay? So next, you need careful attention to the language of the text. Right. So pay attention to what's happening within the text. Pay attention to key words, how they're using language. Also, make sure to pay attention to the cultural, historical, or biographical facts in this story or the poem you're going to analyze, okay? Now, it's important. It's important to read and reread these stories, these poems over and over, so you can get a sense of what's happening, you know, because there's so much happening in these stories that, if you just read it once, you're not going to capture the whole thing, okay? Now, attention to patterns or themes. Mainly, there's going to be certain things, recurring things that are happening in the story. So you need to look at the themes and these recurring patterns, right? So if you see a certain word being repeated or a certain theme, a certain image, this is probably important, right? So themes, we know what themes are, right? A theme is essentially what's the underlying message of the story or the poem, right? That's what a theme is. Now you need a clear interpretation. You should interpret this clearly, obviously, as the slide says. But what that means is, like it says here, a literary analysis demonstrates the plausibility of its thesis by using evidence, right? So you're going to use a lot of evidence in your essays. As much evidence as you can. Don't overdo it. Don't be like just pure evidence and, none of your writing. But you should use relevant contextual evidence to explain how the language and patterns found their support a particular interpretation. So a lot of examples from the text, right? That should be something, you're going to be quoting, you're going to be citing information because you're going to have to use at least one source for your essay. So make sure you're using evidence to support whatever it is you're arguing, okay? When you write a literary analysis, you show readers one way the text may be read and understood. That is your interpretation. So you have to interpret this, and it has to be original, and you need to use evidence, right? So it should be clear what it is you're arguing, how it is you're interpreting this text, okay? Now consider the rhetorical situation, purpose, audience, stance. we've already talked about this, so just make sure you keep these things in mind, right? The stance especially. How can you see your subject through interested, curious eyes? Excuse me. What I told my face-to-face classes is pretend you are writing about the story to somebody who's never read the story or the poem. Okay. Now, I've read all these stories, all these poems, but just pretend I haven't. That way, you can include enough information, right? Enough information so that somebody who hasn't read can understand what it is you're arguing. Okay. Let's see. Now look at your assignment. Look at how, what you're going to write. Some of the prompts that we'll go over in a bit. Make sure that you're familiar with them, and that you're familiar with how to write, or what needs to be included in this essay. Okay. Study the text with a critical eye. Make sure you read it over and over again. Take notes. Annotate your books, or maybe if you can print out the story, I would suggest taking notes within the margins, and asking yourself questions like, why did the author do this? Why are they ending this way? Why are they starting this way, right? Now, choosing methods for analyzing the text. This is pretty simple. Look at the text itself, rather, right? Just look at the text itself, what's happening, what you're seeing, the patterns, the recurring themes, language. Make sure you read it over and over. I keep saying this, but it's so important to read it over and over and over again. Your own response as a reader. Yes, obviously, you're not going to include any of your own personal opinions. Obviously, you're going to keep this in third person, this essay in third person, but you have to respond to it in a way. So make sure you understand what's happening, how you feel about the story or a poem before you actually start writing about it. Okay. Now, also read the text more than once. Like I've said, I would suggest, if you're going to write about a short story, at least 3 times. And then one of those times, taking notes and figuring out what's going on within the story. Because these are hard stories. They're not very simple. There's so much going on beneath the surface, okay? Then read the text carefully. Read it carefully. So read it more than once. Second time you read it, maybe annotate, right? Start asking yourself these questions. What does each word mean exactly? Especially for poetry. What does the writer choose? Why does the writer choose this language, these words? What images or metaphors are used? What is their effect on the meaning? I would also say that with poetry, if you're going to write about a poem, to read the poem at least 5 times for sure. 6, 7 times, definitely. These are short poems. You should read them even 10 times if you can. You know what I mean? But with the short stories, you can get away with reading it 3 times and arguing something about it. But with poetry, I would suggest definitely no less than 5 times. Okay. Now, again, read it carefully. Take notes if you can, and then find evidence to support your interpretation. You're going to use at least one outside source to support your argument, and so this outside source should support whatever it is you're arguing. Okay. Excuse me. If you're writing about Ernest Hemingway's, well, no, that's not an option, because you're not going to be able to write about that story. But if you were to write about, for another class or someday, if you were going to write about hills like white elephants, for example, and you're trying to argue that the hills represent fertility and the woman being pregnant, find a source that supports whatever it is you're saying, right? Don't just, I do want your interpretation for sure, but if you can support it with outside evidence, this will definitely enhance your argument for sure. Okay. So find evidence, not just within the text, because you are going to have to read the text and support with quotes and citations, all that good stuff, but find one source, outside source, that's not the text itself, to support your argument. Okay. Cite and document sources appropriately. Next week, I'm going to open up the MLA, this MLA PowerPoint. So I will go over that next week. But the MLA citation documentation style is what you're going to be using for this essay and for every subsequent essay after that. And it's important for you to know how to cite the information, okay? So we'll talk more about that next week, how to cite stuff. Additional help, ask your classmates, ask your professor, ask a tutor, ask a librarian, all that good stuff. So this is pretty simple, guys. This is pretty self-explanatory. Go over this. Obviously, you're not going to learn to analyze the text critically just by going over this. You will learn some of the key features, but and for your paper, but it's with practice. You have to get out there, read, take notes, and see what's happening, right? That's how you argue, and you find a good argument, and that's how you find out what's happening in these stories or these poems. Okay. Now let's see. Let me get out of this real quick, and I want to go over the. Oh, here it is. I want to go over the instructions real quick for the essay, for your next essay. This isn't due until, I think, this coming Sunday in 2 weeks. So yeah, you have a while. But remember, guys, analyzing a text is not just telling me what's happening in the text. It's coming up with an original argument. And arguing that with support from the text and an outside source, okay? No summarizing. If you just tell me, well, this happens in the story, and then it's cool that this happens, that's not an analysis, right? Analyzing means looking at the details of it, okay? So just remember that. Now, the instructions for the essay are down here. They're over here. Literary analysis. Due the 22nd. So you guys have almost 3 weeks. This always happens. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Now, a literary analysis is an essay that closely examines literary texts in order to understand their message, interpret their meanings, and appreciate the writer's technique and style. The point of a literary analysis is to show another way a text might be read or understood, your interpretation, right? It's your own interpretation. Furthermore, a literary analysis is an argument in which you argue that your interpretation of the text is valid. The thesis must be arguable and not obvious, right? Since it is an argument, the literary analysis goes beyond simply summarizing the text, okay? So you're arguing something, a specific aspect of the story or the poem, and you're offering evidence, okay? As a matter of fact, yes, requires you to look carefully at the language. Okay, all that we already talked about. But once you formulate your interpretation, you must use evidence from the text and format your essay according to MLA style. For this essay, choose one of the prompts based on the reading below and write an analysis essay. If you choose to come up with your own prompt, you must first have it approved by me, okay? So you have to pick one of these prompts down here. If you want to come up with your own prompt for one of the other stories that are on here, or a story you've read, you have to run it by me first, okay? Remember that. If you don't, and you submit an essay that's not approved by me, if your prompt isn't approved by me, then I'm not going to grade it. So you need to talk to me first. Email me, or choose to meet with me during office hours, and we can discuss what you want to write about, okay? But these are pretty good prompts. I've already done pretty much half of the work for you because I've already narrowed it down. And I do this because a lot of students have issues and trouble coming up with their own prompts. It's not easy. So I offer a couple of them here in case you want to write about it. So, you know what? Yeah, and I think earlier I said you were not going to be able to write about hills like white elephants. That's right. I do have a prompt here about hills like white elephants. Though that's for my face-to-face classes. I'm not going to have them write about this because we discuss this in class, and so much of them want to write about it because we cover everything in class, and so they just think it's easy to write about it since we pretty much answer every question in class. So you guys can write about hills like white elephants, okay? Now, the first prompt is discuss symbolism in hills like white elephants, which is good. So the symbolism. The second one is compare both Campo de Fiori and Musée des Beaux-Arts. Musée des Beaux-Arts. It's my horrible French, which is these are both great poems. So you're going to compare both of those poems, which will be open. I think I'll open that module next week, so you guys can excuse me, check those poems out. For Carver, salvation lies in human contact and connectedness. This one's talking about cathedral. The other prompt is also about cathedral or the Lone Ranger and Tonto fist fight in heaven. Analyze how point of view. So point of view is going to be very important for sure. Analyze the importance of water imagery in the swimmer. What different kinds of things does water represent in the story? Suggest and explain 2 possible themes for Indian Camp by Ernest Hemingway, which is a heartbreaking story. So sad. I remember a professor, one of my college professors, he was reading the story to us in class, Indian Camp, and he just broke down in tears at the end. Like, it was crazy. Not crazy, but super emotional. And now when I read passages of that story to my students in classes, I also get choked up. So it's a really heartbreaking story, but it's a great one. So you would have to talk about 2 possible themes for that one. And then what evidence of the traditional elements of plot, such as conflict, rising action, and climax, do you find in videotape? So this was by Don DeLillo, which is a great short story, kind of disturbing. And then consider topic, theme, form, and imagery in any of the poems posted on Blackboard. So for this one, you'll be able to pick any of the poems if you want. So remember, just pick one of these prompts, not 2 or 3. Just pick one and write your essay, okay? Essays should be MLA format, 2 to 3 pages again. Short, to the point. I think that's all you need. Times New Roman, 12-point font, or 11-point Calibri. At least 1 outside source is required, okay, guys? Remember, 1, and the source can be a literary magazine. It can be another like a novel. It can be anything, basically. Just it has to be reliable. We're going to talk more about that, though. We're going to talk about reliable sources next week when we talk about MLA, when I make a video for MLA, and where you can find good sources using the EPCC databases. So I'll show you guys that next week. Okay. What else? So there's a due date. And if you're wondering all these things, like what is he talking about? Point of view, theme, and all this stuff, guys, is in the Elements of Fiction right here. You click on that. This Elements of Fiction link pops up. It says PDF, this handout, and it talks about, there you go, how to read fiction. We don't have time to go through all of this. If I went through all of this right now, this would be like a 40-minute video. But I want you all to read through this, okay? Because a lot of this stuff, it's asked in the questions in those prompts, okay? So make sure you're comfortable with knowing what point of view is, what's first person point of view, second person point of view, that you know about setting, characters, plot, theme. There's a lot of really good information here, and it's easy. It's very simple to go through, right? It talks about setting, the functions of setting in a story or in a poem, how to analyze a setting. What else? Characters, what a protagonist is, what an antagonist is, major characters, how to analyze, and that's a huge typo. Character, how to analyze character, characterization through dialogue, of course, physical appearance, all that good stuff. And it talks about plot, how plot moves along, how characters can move a plot along, exposition, rising action. You all know this. This is called Freytag's pyramid, right? So we have exposition here, then we have rising action. You guys remember this from high school, right? Then we have climax up here, then we have falling action, and then here is resolution or denouement, okay? And it talks about every single one of them in detail, okay? So make sure you all go through this handout on your own and check out some of the special techniques too, foreshadowing, flashback, symbolism. There's some good foreshadowing in the story of an hour, which is in this week's module. See if you catch that. Go back and reread if you haven't read it, or if you already read it, go back and reread the story of an hour, and there's some foreshadowing there for sure. How to analyze a plot, conflict, etc., etc. Okay, so please make sure you all are familiar with this handout, and when you're writing your essay, go back to this and use it to help you write this essay. Okay, and again, I know it's hard being in an online class and this stuff. You know, when my face-to-face classes, we get to discuss all this stuff, and but you guys can figure this out. It's not hard. It's just there to aid you, in figuring out how to analyze a story or a poem. Okay, good information here. Let's see. That's pretty much it, guys. Again, really, I just wanted to close this. I just wanted to discuss this and go over the essay instructions. That way, you guys are, familiar with what's going on. How do you close this? Okay. Anyways, we are already a month into class, 6 weeks. This is week 6. It's going by really quick, guys. Really, really quick. Before you know it, it's going to be over. So this essay is going to come by quick. Make sure you read all the stuff. I'm going to open some of the modules, the next 2 modules actually. I'm going to open them up early. That way you guys have access to all the short stories or the poems that you guys can write about. Or that way, yeah, it's better for you all, and you won't have to wait till the last week to for me to open up like the poetry module. So you'll have access to that stuff. The writing exercises and the discussions, those will open up regularly, like during the week. But I will open up every other short story and poem that you guys can write about for your essay. So I would say start drafting out an essay as soon as possible. Check out all the prompts for that I posted here for the essay. And if you want to come up with your own prompt, or you want to argue about a different short story, let's say you read Bullet in the Brain by Tobias Wolff one day, and you want to write about that story and it's not in the prompt, well, then just email me or get in touch with me, and then we can see what you want to write about, right? There's so many stories out there, so many poems. Remember, it's just a short story, though, and a poem you have to write about, not a novel. Okay? You cannot analyze a novel in 2 pages. It's impossible. So make sure it's a short story or a poem if it's not one of the ones that's in the instructions, okay? What else? That's, I think, pretty much it for this, guys. I know I didn't want to make this too long of a video, but if you have any questions, please. You guys all seem to be okay. I don't really get any questions, or nobody emails me with concerns, and that's fine. No questions and no emails that's a good thing. That means you guys are getting the information. Lastly, I wanted to say that I will be grading your memoirs this weekend. I finished my other classes already, grading those memoirs, so this you guys will be next, so I should be done by Sunday grading, and you'll get a better sense of where your grades at during the halfway point, because we're pretty much at the halfway point of school, like next week or the week after. So have a before I end this, in your essays, I leave comments, okay? So make sure you read the in-text comments that I leave in your memoirs, but also I leave audio message and comments. So make sure you listen to my audio message and comments, so you can see, what I thought about your essay and how you can improve, okay? So both in-text comments and comments, read those, and don't just, say, oh, I got a 70 and, that's it. I don't know why. I leave comments so that you know why you got the grade you got, right? Also look at the rubric so you can see a breakdown of your grade, okay? That's pretty much it for today, guys. I will make another video next week going over MLA. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me, okay? Have a great weekend, y'all. It's almost Friday. I will talk to y'all soon.